Well, I want to go over this question about Iran and nuclear weapons. First off, I know that the UN and CIA and the Mossad say officially, but not unofficially. Well, the UN can do whatever the hell it wants, but the CIA and the Mossad, they know better. But there's no proof, because otherwise it would have been shut down. It's hidden. But I'm going to point to you real common sense facts. And anybody that can't see this, I'd have to say if that person can't see what the Iran is doing, that person should the mafia would love them as an investigator on organized crime because they just can't put two and two together. And I'll put it that way. Anyway, first off, Iran is sitting on enough natural gas to last 100 years, okay? For their own purposes. There's always this problem where we're going to run out of fossil fuels, which I don't know if they're fossil, if they're from dinosaurs per se, whatever the hell they're from. But we're going to run out of conventional fuels like crude oil and natural gas and things like that. And, so we need to find alternative energy. The problem is we're going to run out of uranium before that. And actually, in the case of specifically with Iran, they do not have a very long supply of uranium. They don't have that much. They're not they're very rich in natural gas. Like the only country that has more natural gas than them is Russia. But you figure the expanse of the country of Russia, actually, Iran has a hell of a lot of natural gas concentrated a lot in their borders, and crude oil. So they got well over 100 years supply to supply their own electrical needs. They did. Now, with uranium, yeah, you can make nuclear bombs when it's possible, right? But, you say they're not, whatever. But I'm going to look at the economic situation. First off, one way to avoid the issue completely is to use thorium reactors, which China's starting to use now. That technology's been around since the 1960s. Thorium is way more plentiful than uranium. It is also much, much, much safer and cleaner. Why does no country use thorium nuclear reactors? Because it doesn't freaking make bomb material. I mean, that's all there is to it. Everybody uses their nuclear power to make materials for nuclear weapons. They all do. That's why they don't use thorium. China's actually starting to put some of that online with thorium reactors, but they have the other kinds too. But the Iran, they're one of their biggest trading partners. That's very close by. Is a major place that has a lot of thorium, and that is India. Another place that has a lot of thorium is Australia and the United States. I think those are the top three in the world. India, Australia, and the United States. United States, there's no thorium reactors because they want bombs, right? Now, is an atomic or nuclear bomb a defensive weapon? It is a defensive weapon in this manner: mutually assured destruction. Basically, it's an offensive weapon, but it's a defensive weapon because if you get attacked, you can use this nuclear bomb against another person's country. So that's the only way it's actually a defensive weapon. And that is really, it's the mutually assured destruction policy. And that is really why Israel has so many of these bombs, because, I'm quite obvious that Israel would be wiped off the face of the map a long time ago if it wasn't strong. It really would have been. And now a lot of people I know the pendulum has swung so hard the other way against Israel, it's ridiculous. I'm not somebody who just blindly sticks up for Israel, but I could see what's fair is fair. So, and I could see common sense plain as day. I could see some things that are just plain common sense. So they have nuclear weapons for that reason. I know there's an argument like, how come they have them? No inspectors can go in there. Nobody can verify. They're not part of the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty, because they get screwed if they were part of that. They would. So it's almost like this. You know, Iran's not doing a nuclear program for nuclear weapons. No, then you could say, well, Israel doesn't have it. Israel says they don't have nuclear weapons either. How's that? I mean, that's really what's going on. I mean, they're both lying, and they both know what's going on. Now, with the case of Iran, since they're sitting on that much natural gas and crude oil, the amount of electricity they would get from nuclear energy is like infinitesimal. Now, I know there's other uses out there for nuclear energy too. I mean, nuclear doing their developing uranium and all this type of stuff. They can use isotopes for medical use and all this stuff. And I'm going to get onto what that could be, but I'm going to point out to you that basically what they're saying is a scam, and they do have aggressive intentions. They do. It's like they will not do anything aggressively till they feel like they're strong enough to freaking not be harmed themselves. That's exactly the way they are. The actual Iranian regime is criminal. The actual Iranian people are not criminal. And I am aware that there's probably, there's millions and millions of Jews that are living in Iran peacefully. It's not exactly over religion, but it is over a corrupt regime. And you can say the West is corrupt. I know the West is corrupt, and for crying out loud, I don't know what place isn't corrupt. But these guys getting nuclear weapons is bad news. And I want to underline it that they are trying to get nuclear weapons by using pure common sense. Because the CIA and the Mossad and the UN don't have absolute proof. But it's like, how much money are they spending to put these facilities underground? A great deal. They're not out in the open. It's an expensive program as it is. They're putting up with crushing economic sanctions. You know, if they were just trying to defend their country, all the money they spent on this nuclear stuff, and, even if it was for bombs that were for defense, they could have easily upgraded their military with all that money, and they would have that much more money flowing into their coffers because of lack of sanctions. So you know what it really is. It's for offensive purposes, despite what they're saying. Now, is Israel have nuclear weapons, which they deny, which you could say, oh, there's no proof, there's nobody inspected them or whatever. But does Israel have nuclear weapons so they can be offensive? No, it's defensive. It's a matter of survival. I'm really calling it out the way it is. That's really what it is. A lot of people don't want to hear that, but that really is it. I'm not Jewish or anything like that, and it's just the way it is. It's just how it is. I mean, why do you think they have nuclear weapons? It's because they need them in that case. In the case of Iran, they're actually creating a war situation by insisting on this program. And, like I said, if they were trying to get electrical power from nuclear materials or whatever from nuclear technology, using thorium would bypass the whole problem with the nuclear grade weapons, the nuclear grade material or anything like that could possibly produce, because you don't get that from thorium. And it would also be economically much more feasible for Iran, because one of their biggest trading partners, actually Australia, besides another big trading partner, has lots of thorium. It's very much more abundant in the world. As a matter of fact, if Iran went to uranium and nuclear power, the world would run out of uranium way before they would crude oil and natural gas. That's a fact. In Iran, they're not uranium-rich country. They're very rich in natural gas and crude oil. Now, another factor is the amount of electricity these guys are going to get, the Iranians are going to get from nuclear power, once it's done, is infinitesimal compared to what their needs are. They can actually upgrade their infrastructure, electrical infrastructure, and get more benefit from that by the efficiency than they would by the nuclear electricity. But, in the know, anybody, they're not going to say it publicly, but if you read other things privately, the CIA and people in the, intelligence and the military, they know Iran is trying to get nuclear weapons, period. But considering they're trying to, common sense right on the face of it, if they're going through all this garbage, all these sanctions, all this economic hardship, all this expense on top of the sanctions, and putting everything underground to get nuclear weapons, to get a nuclear program going, you know, their intentions are not about just generating electricity. You know it. So I don't know, I don't know how to actually make it more clear than this, but people have their mind made up one way or the other. It's like I have my mind made up. That's it. That's it. And I have to say, I'm going to say this. I could be critical of Jews when it's warranted, and I think people, because I don't like bringing it up so much, because then it's like they get this too much attention on them and shit, like a focus, what are they doing there? What are they doing there? But, I mean, that's really what it comes down to. But, everybody makes these statements like the Rothschilds did this because that means the banksters are Jewish. Well, I'm against the Zionists, I'm not against the Jews or whatever. I don't know what the hell all that means. But, if, to give you a good example, how people don't even think like a group at all, even if you take American Jews versus Israeli Jews. Romney would have been he would have been more supported. He would have won the election if it was just by Israeli Jews, because Romney was more supportive of Israel. American Jews, in general, were more supportive of Obama. Now, Obama is like, practically a Muslim. So, American Jews went more for, in general, I mean, I don't know if it's like, making a broad statement here, but everybody makes these broad brush statements, right, against the Jews all this time. But American Jews were a little more generally supportive of Obama than Israeli Jews. And why was that? Because of social issues, mainly. I mean, I'm kind of saying, in general, but, and why do they care about social issues? Because they're Americans who care about their fellow Americans. Got it? So, that's why I get mad at this blatant anti-Semitism or anti-Jewishism, whatever you want to call it. Some people say you should call it anti-Semitic because a lot of Jews aren't really from that region. They're from like southern Russia. I know all that shit, for crying out loud. But, American Jews are very concerned about social issues in the United States, and sometimes they and a lot of them put that ahead of Israel, what their concern for fellow Americans was about. That's really why more of them voted for Obama. I wouldn't have voted for Obama. I didn't vote for neither one of those guys, actually. I voted for, the third party. But I'm all for, I think they should have done it a long time ago with this deal with Iran, because the thing that bothers me about this crap with Iran, because I think the more they're waiting, the longer they're waiting, it's actually gonna be a freaking problem. If it was done years ago, people were scared what's gonna happen, I think it would have worked out better. I think the more they're waiting, the worse it's gonna be. That's what I don't like about this deal with, stopping the Iranian nuclear program. And that's what it's about. It's not about going to war with Iran and Iranian people. It's about stopping your nuclear program. It's not for freaking electricity. And people say, even the people realize that it's for nuclear weapons. Say, why shouldn't they have nuclear weapons? If they're freaking so hell bent on getting nuclear weapons in the face of all these sanctions and all this expense they're putting up, and it's definitely leading up to war because they're insisting on this program, it's for offensive purposes. You know it. And it's, at the least, if Israel wasn't even in that area, there would be a nuclear arms race in the Middle East, and the whole place would go up anyway, because that's just how it is, man. That's just how it is. And if you can't see that, forget about it. I mean, it's just how it is. It's just how it is. So, and I'm not very religious. I mean, I think like sometimes Jews are really cool because they're not trying to convert me into like, you know, if you, well, they don't try to preach to me like, you know, I'm okay with Jesus, but I'm just saying that a lot of times there are people into a lot of religion. They'll keep telling me, you know, all these quotes about from the Bible and about if you're not saved if you don't do this, and if you're, you know, I don't get a lot of that from. Well, Jews never do that. You know, they're not trying to tell me I must be, you know, wailing at the wall or else I won't be saved. You know, they just do their own thing, and they're fine by me. So that's what it is. But yeah, I know they got some bad ones, and like sometimes Jewish people are very, very, very smart, right? A lot of times, I mean, not every one of them, but so if you got a really, really smart people, and you got a bad one, they tend to gravitate to pretty high end crime, you know. So and it gets a lot of attention, and people get pissed off, and I know the deal. But come on, man. Iran really is trying to get nukes, and it's not because they're peaceful. The regime, the people are peaceful. The people are always peaceful. That regime is screwed up. And it's saying, well, you know, I know the United States shouldn't have supported the Shah, or they should, if they supported the Shah, they should have been taking active measurements to watch what this guy was doing as far as all his human rights abuses. But you know how that goes. You know, if say when the United States, or to say the money people in the United States, not the people itself, but the money people in the United States, when they're supporting the Shah, oh, they're just looking at the bottom line. Hey, what's the revenue? How's things going? You know, how much money do we make? They don't give a shit until the money gets cut off. Then they worry. That's their problem, man. That's their problem. So, I'm going to tell you, you know it already. People already know it. Let me put it this way. I don't want to kiss Jews' ass, man, because that's freaking Joe Biden bullshit. That's Mario Cuomo shit. I get in trouble sometimes for being critical. I do. But I think they're right on the money with this shit. They are. They are. It's no bullshit. Iran's trying to get nuclear weapons, and it's not for peaceful purposes. It's not for the defense. A nuclear weapon is only for defense because it ensures the destruction of the other country. And nobody is trying to attack Iran yet. And the only reason people are getting pissed off at Iran and trying to knock out the regime is because of their insistence on the nuclear weapons. If they back down on this, there'd be peace. But they're not interested in peace. That's really what it is. They're not interested in peace. I don't give a damn if it's been 200 years since they had a war or whatever. You know, if you look back in European history, there's been times in France, things never happened for hundreds and hundreds of years. There's been times in Germany, things that never happened to happen years and years. And then all of a sudden you get a regime change and things change. Well, right now I say the regime in Iran is bad news. And if you want to believe they're peaceful, I don't know, you're beyond reaching. What can I say?